fix my street light outside the county council.
Within the council.
That's just registry, so
Ends, not here.
Okay, welcome everybody to this Leisure Committee meeting held on the 8th of November. Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Town Council. Please note the recording device is sensitive and the recording cannot be edited, so do not say anything you do not want recorded. If necessary, I will direct all recording in the room to be stopped, but generally I want to avoid doing that, so we will normally record everything except any item taken in closed session. Members of the public may also make their own recordings, but must follow our rules for doing so, stopping recording when requested. Whilst we do not accept anonymous speaking in the public forum, members of the public who wish to speak but do not want their names published must please indicate this before stating your piece. Thank you. Before we start, Councillor Lucarini sent the email out earlier on today that Christopher Gertine had sadly passed away. He's been ill for some time, I think some of us knew anyway. And so I think it'd be appropriate that we have a minute's silence in memory of him, and considering his association with this, or his family's association with this building and the other things in town. So if you would mind standing up. Thank you very much. Right. Yeah, I'm going to say, should we do apologies first?
Yep. Yeah, apologies from Councillor Hammond.
Declarations of interest and request for dispensation. Anybody? Yeah, thank you very much. Do you want the minutes? What should we do these? Cecilia?
It's up to you.
Yeah. Okay. As Cecilia's here, and to save you hanging around all night.
Yes, okay, yeah, great.
We'll move straight to your item, if that's all right with members. Item 4, Cecilia is chair of the Haverhill Singers.
I am, yes.
And you're going to advise us on your plans for next year.
Well, I am. Yes, may I sort of stand up?
Yeah, right, it's do whatever you want to do. Do it's more convenient for you.
Was advising you of our upcoming concert, of which we've got posters around town and here, courtesy of Daniel. Yeah, I wanted just to kind of put a face to my face to names, because I've been doing some interchange with people for funding, which I've had some responses from, and 2 have been accepted, which is going to help us get back on our feet. But before I say any more, can I say this very sad news about Mr. Gertine, because he was our president, and the Gertine family set up what was Haverhill Choral Society. I believe it was called the Choral Union originally, back in the mid-1800s. And, you know, things have changed. We've had different faces in terms of different names and, of course, lots of different people along the way. But certainly COVID had a serious effect on us and halved our numbers, kind of, you know, in the space of a couple of years. And so we are trying to raise our profile and get involved in more things when we're ready to do that. Now, we were going to, we'd hoped, hadn't we, to put on a little show, shall we say, before the Leslie Garrett performance that was upcoming this week. That partly hasn't happened because of Leslie Garrett's situation, but partly for us. Our MD, his partner, has just recovered from a cancer operation. He hasn't been able to give us some extra time to do some extra musical study to make us competent to drop everything and come to various events that you might have on. But what I would like to say is we are working towards that for next year. Preferably not outdoor events. I was a little bit preemptive when I suggested we might do something at the Remembrance Sunday, and then was told by my MD that it probably wasn't a good idea in this kind of strange weather that we're having at the moment. You do need a large group of people and lots of equipment to make sure that singing outdoors is actually heard. So we decided, with the better part of valour really, that we should withdraw from that and be remembered for what we were good at, not for something that might have got lost on the wind and ended up in Cambridge somewhere. So that said, we would like to take part in things next year where having some voices, it might be part of the choir, it might be the whole choir in some cases, although getting 30 or 40 people in somewhere is not always easy, but there are groups of us that are quite happy to sing without accompaniment, a cappella, indoors, where we can be heard. And we'd like to offer those services as and when it's appropriate to add it on perhaps to some events. From our point of view, it's free of charge. We want to come and raise our profile. We're very acutely aware that people join us when they've heard us. And although we're getting social media underway, it takes a while to get that up into the consciousness of the public. We've got some snippets on there now of us singing, but we'll hope to get some YouTube snippets as well, and get people coming through our website that's also new to find us. So the reason for being here was to let you know we exist. You probably all sort of vaguely knew of us in the background somewhere. Liz very kindly came to our May concert. Wasn't May, wasn't it? Or was it the Christmas one?
Yeah, Christmas one.
Christmas was Hunden. Were you at Hunden? Well, it could have been May. Yes, I'm not yeah. And I don't know. Do you remember us? Do you remember us being reasonable?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Sorry? John Bennett, yes, yeah. And under his baton, we've improved dramatically because he is an incredible conductor. He's so accurate, and he teaches us. So none of us are professionals. It's one or two people come from musical backgrounds, but most of us, like myself, I did music to O level. I can read music. I've got better at it since working with John. But most of us do it from ear, first of all, and you get muscle memory, and then you're able to perform. But if you've got somebody up front who keeps, who tells you what you've got to be doing and keeps you going and starts you and stops you at the right time, that's a huge bonus. He's extremely good. So if people are available on December the 10th at 5 o'clock at the Methodist Church, we are there. We'd be most pleased to see you. I know Bruce is coming, I believe.
Yes.
In his diary now, but I'm sure that doesn't mean to say that people couldn't come along and see us in action, so that you've got a taste of what we're capable of, and our range is very, very wide. We've been known for big choral works. When we have 50 or 60 people, you could do Messiah and various other huge works and have no problem with it. It's more of a struggle to do the big works when you're 30 strong. So we've been doing a lot smaller pieces, contemporary work, and it's a carol concert effectively on the 10th. But it's some of the more unusual carols that you don't hear very often. It's some of the livelier ones that are, kind of do knock your socks off a bit. And we've got a couple of funny songs mixed in there, tongue-in-cheek stuff going on as well. So that with Rotary, the Haverhill Rotary Club, are supporting us with refreshments and drinks afterwards. So it's all part of the deal to come and listen to us for an hour and then join in after the event. So next year we've got planning a concert at the end of March. We haven't got a name for it yet, but it's going to be a lot of small pieces of classical music that are themed around spring and the Easter period. And then we've got one coming up on the 1st of July as well, which hasn't been settled in terms of content, but it's my understanding that we'll do all the concerts at the Methodist Church, mainly because of numbers, of the size of our choir, the size of audiences. They've diminished a bit over the years. We're trying to get them up, but to make it feel comfortable, cosy, fun to be there listening to the music, it is the right kind of size of place with good acoustics to, house maybe 60 or 70 people in the audience and us. And then it gets quite crowded after that. We've been known for going to the Old Independent Church, but it's massive. It takes some filling with people, let alone with the choir. So, we're not ignoring them as a church, but we're going where we're best suited for the current period. But we're hoping to join in with some of the ideas that Daniel gave us next year in terms of linking in with other musical events that will go on at here at the Arts Centre, and in terms of having some ideas of our own to maybe put on some kind of concert and show that we can initiate and discuss and agree dates with Daniel. So we're kind of trying to get there. Bit of an uphill battle at the moment in some ways, but with your support and any promotion, shall we say, that is possible through your good selves, then we hope to be a valuable asset to the community as time goes on. So yeah, I guess that's me really. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but any questions? Anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Susie. I appreciate that. For your, a lot of stuff going on. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I went to a concert at the Old Independent Church in 2018, I think. It was amazing.
It was
the
thank you.
best concert I've been to.
Thank you.
Absolutely blown away. So
We
standard is absolutely
Thank
fantastic.
you. Yeah. I've got a friend who used to sing in the famous Bark choir, but there's several around the country. But she was in London. She doesn't sing anymore. She's 90, and her voice doesn't, her breathing capacity doesn't let her do it anymore. But she said that at the Vivaldi's Gloria that we sang in May, she said it was the best she'd ever heard. That's a wonderful thing to hear from somebody who's been a singer all her life and has sung for one of the famed choirs. So yes, I think we don't like to, particularly English, you kind of go, oh well, I suppose we're good, but actually we are. we are pretty good, and we're pretty versatile. So we hope we can get involved with you more. I think that's all to say. Other than please come if you can. I'm sure a few tickets can be made available to you as a thanks from us to you. If you'd like to leave some tonight and you want to, partake, I'm quite happy to leave half a dozen tickets and come if you can. Because for us at the moment, it's not necessarily about having everybody pay the £10 to get in. It's more about we want people to hear us, we want people to come. If you feel like giving us the £10 back on the door, you're more than welcome. But can I do that? Can I leave those with you? Yeah. So yes, that's me, and hopefully we'll all see one another again in the future sometime.
Was there any other questions from members at all? No,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll just get the tickets and then I'll leave.
Yes, lovely, thank you. Okay, we'll just do the minutes and the items covered from the minutes, and then we'll, because Councillor Furman has to get off to work, I'm going to move to 7D and then do the rest of that, all right? Pop up market. So, minutes of the last meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, lovely, thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Right, held on the 3rd of October. I hope you've all read them. I've got a proposal, first of all. Councillor Bruce Davidson, Councillor Liz Smith. All those in favour, please show.
you.
Bye-bye now. Bye.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks. Right then. Moving on. To note any actions, items number 5 this is. 8.68, it's got nothing on it. 9. Well, we've got something there from Dan, but I think we're probably wait till you get to your thing.
I can confirm I have passed on.
Yeah, congratulations. Thank you very much. Again, for both of those, yeah. Okay, so 169, 170.
It's noted we're not needing for this meeting.
No, that's right. Yeah, and all the rest is the notes and we can go with it. Right, we're going to move on to item 7, Delta, the pop-up market proposal. Who's doing that one?
I'm happy to feed in on that one. Some of you may recall that back in spring we had a strange request from West Suffolk District Council to town councils around the area. They wanted to spend 100,000 on a pod. Wanted to plonk it in a high street here in Newmarket, Bury St Edmunds, anywhere will do. Could one of the councils basically act as landlord, rent it out, and charge money for people who want to do pop-up shops. So we all kind of, we got like a fortnight to come back and say how 100 grand is going to be spent. So kind of went back first of all and said, this is a weird way to spend £100,000. Do we have to do it quite like this? We couldn't personally come up with a proposal in that time, and we said, well, good luck to anyone else. Not surprisingly, it never happened. And that 100,000 has wafted away on some other project somewhere. However, we had said that, look, if you want to do something like pop-up shops, we had a long time ago talked about indoor pop-up shops, etc. And we talked about various different shop units as being a potential possibility. But at the time, a couple of years back, West Suffolk weren't interested in doing anything like that. So they came back and said, is that something you could still do? So Sarah's done a bit of work and basically come up with proposals. This is, I mean, it always makes me laugh about pop-up shops because Paul does pop-up shops every week. They're called markets. But a lot of people don't want to be outdoors anymore, and some people want to, I think particularly artists, crafts, etc. Aren't always so keen on being outdoors because the weather's not kind to their products. There are some arts and crafters who've expressed an interest, so we've got enough people we think could be interested in an indoor market. But after that, I mean, that's only really because we have to have sufficient people interested in something to say that it could work. After this, it could be anyone who thinks they've got a business model of trading of some sort and would like to give it a go. So who knows where it might evolve to. But but basically West Suffolk are offering support, some capital costs to go into it. Sarah's managed to get a reasonable price for the high street in the old YMCA shop. Obviously they moved across the road. And really what we're asking today, I think the timescale is, we said, is rather optimistic in terms of being able to start in December. But we really want to get some feedback on what you thought of the paper that we put together, and some suggestions, proposals, etc., so that Sarah can work up something to take to full council, or drop it like a hot potato if you think it's the worst idea you've ever heard. So it's whatever you think really.
Councillor Smith?
Will this be a weekend only one, or will it be all done every day?
It would be, well, I don't know if it would be Sundays as well, but it would be open sort of every day, yeah. Yes, it's not a market stall as such.
Councillor Dave Smith, then Councillor Davison, then Tony Brown.
So initial setup costs, I mean, from that picture there, got these stalls. Well, are we looking to buy 25 of these stalls?
That's one of the things we've got to look at, is to whether or not we need to do that. That's really just kind of like a picture of stalls. There's shop fittings, where stuff around £5 grand will go. But I'm assuming that some of the crafters will be people who've done craft fairs here, etc. Because there has been, every now and again, there's been little kind of blips of interest on this sort of thing. So some of them won't need anything particularly ambitious, and to a certain extent, I think when you just try and prove a concept, you probably don't want to spend an awful lot of money on fixtures and fittings if it turns out that the kind of first flush of people's enthusiasm wanes away, and we find that there's not enough people out there with enough stock to actually give it the kind of oomph it needs. It has to have a certain amount of momentum, doesn't it? Because otherwise, if somebody says, "Oh, I've got 40 Christmas cards I've made, I'd like to sell them." Well, what do you do after you've made 40? If that took you all year, you're not going to be able to keep the stock going. So I don't think we're going to go too nuts on fancy shop fittings.
So will we be sort of asking for a minimum length of sign up for it? I mean, would it just be on a week by week basis?
I think the idea is, you remember right, it does say here it's about doing it kind of like month to month, because it's kind of this pop-up thing. So pop-up does suggest it's not going to be there permanently, but I mean, there may be somebody who is really very successful and is buying and selling stock.
I suppose it depends how much they put the rates up or rent up after the 3-month period. Could you just explain that where it says income on funding? What £100 per pitch per trader times 10 and 15 traders? I don't understand what that.
10 to 50.
I think it
Right,
I think it should be, yeah.
Right.
Because obviously there may be different people in the course of a month. My only experience, which isn't a particularly great comparison, but Exmouth had an indoor market that was open every day. I believe it was probably close to 2 days a week, but it was open every day, and they tended to have the same stalls all the time, some very established traders in there, and then they had a couple of stalls which people would be trying out. But that's they didn't have an outdoor market. So
Yeah, there was like in shops or something. That's, I don't know, did you ever know? In shops? Was the Argos, wasn't that?
It's I've worked in Argos
Yeah.
30 years ago. Did loads for up there,
Yeah, where we used to live, the Arts and Ventures was converted into indoor market basically.
Councillor Davison?
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, there's income and funding 10 to 15 traders. So if we look at 15 traders, so that means that we're down £1,500, but you're saying that the community trust would underwrite £3,000, so immediately we're losing £1,500 each month. So just in 3 months, that's £4.5 grand. If it goes longer, it's going to be a lot of money. Isn't that quite quite a high amount that they're willing to sort of, and where's that money coming from, what's the point?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's what we've got to try and work out how that would work.
And the other thing is, sorry, the YMCA shop, 3 months, do you have any knowledge as to what would happen after 3 months? Because I'd like to believe that the YMCA shop will move, the old one that is, will be taken up in due course by a large entity.
Perhaps it will. But not everybody else wants to play. And this is one of the things that a landlord actually was willing to do a meanwhile lease at a low cost. The vast majority, of course, as we know, the reason that Poundland next door is empty is because they couldn't do an agreement. We don't know what, we weren't party to what that agreement was, but there's lots of shops sitting empty where we've heard very, very high rents being charged. So, and quite often we know it's been very difficult to even find out who the landlord is. So, I suspect, we got this one actually said yes, and if you want to try and do something fairly quickly, then we go with the only one that said yes.
Because I think moving on from what Councillor Dave Smith said, you might have a few people want to do the pop-up before Christmas, but come January, February, I would have thought personally, so we either try and go for it before Christmas or leave it until say the spring.
Yeah. What a great thing. A lot of residents always go on about, the town council or council does not invest in the town centre, which we know isn't 100% correct. We do try very hard, but I really think this would be a good scheme. It's not throwing money away, it's investing in the future of the town. Hopefully some entrepreneurs will come out of it. No, I'm 100% behind it. It's going to brighten up the town and make the town centre a lot more interesting. So 100% behind it.
Councillor Mason.
Just a couple of points. I may not be very good at the maths. I don't mind per se if, in terms of investing in the high street, that it runs at a loss in terms of us supporting local startups and businesses and small traders. I think that's definitely something we should be looking at. The Community Trust would underwrite approximately £3,000 a month to cover rent, rates, utilities. It's suggesting, £300 per month to cover rent. I'm just worried about some of the £3,000. I'm just worried about some of the costs. So the rent is £1,250 and utilities is £950. Now,
That comes to 3,000.
yeah, but what I'm concerned about is where does that figure come from in terms of utilities? Because if it's going to be open, every day and the heating through the cold months, are we confident that those figures are realistic in terms of the council's exposure in terms of some costs regarding energy? Is that £950 actually going to cover those costs? For me, I'm frustrated that this is 3 months too late. I would have much rather it been talked about in September, looking so that we could start it in October, November, December. I don't see January and February as great trading months for the high street. So for me, that's slightly problematic. I just want to make sure that whilst this is a positive proposal about supporting local businesses, that we don't find ourselves exposed to more risk than what may initially be visible.
It's taken a very, very long time to get anything back from the landlords. That's why it's taken so long.
Councillor of the Community.
Before I get my comments, I just want to understand. So the only support coming from West Suffolk is this background.
Well, I think there's chance we may, whether it be financial support, we may get some more support because I know that John talked about the fact that they would provide additional support in terms of advice, etc.
Okay, it slightly bugs me because obviously we had this £100,000 from the Sickest fund that we had bid for a pot. I know originally we couldn't find anywhere to locate a pot in Haverhill, fine. But West Suffolk did come back and say that they were happy to amend the schemes to allow us to look at offering pods indoors. That's been withdrawn, or?
Well, the 100,000 isn't available anymore. But I mean, it's just the time it's taken to actually get a landlord to come back and agree somewhere to go. Obviously, I don't know what West Suffolk were planning on doing with the money. SIGIF funds, I expect they would happily renegotiate to do something different with it.
Yeah,
But then think quite a lot, if you think all that money,
I know,
around
well,
COVID we were offered and never saw.
That's what really winds me up, is that some people don't know this, but over COVID we had master plan meetings and we talked a lot about pods and indoor markets, and West Suffolk were, well, at the time it seemed really behind it, and there was potentially lots of money available from the government. And then over time the meetings kind of got scrapped and we stopped talking about it as much, and now we're at a point where it seems that there's no support from West Suffolk, when it really should be West Suffolk actually helping to drive this. We should just be providing a little bit of support ourselves, not actually driving the whole scheme. This scheme, though, is a great idea, and obviously it's probably a note, I was really behind it. I'm just very worried now that when we're talking about only potentially having this building for 3 months, that's not a lot of time to actually get businesses to want to come into this space. When we originally talked about this, it was about renting a building for a whole year, so we could give businesses some security of knowing that, you know, if they're going to invest themselves in starting a pop-up shop, they'd be there for a substantial amount of time. At the moment, at the end of 3 months, we could be turning around to them and saying, that's it, time's up. That worries me. The time you were trying to do this at is concerning. Myself and John spoke to the West Suffolk's Market Development Officer on Saturday. She herself said that the time of year we're trying to do this at is not a great time. December will be good, obviously you've got the run up to Christmas, great, you've got 3 weeks of potentially good trading. After that, she was saying that she sees on the markets, trade substantially drops off. And we see that in the high street anyway, it goes quiet for January and February. So it's probably a bad time of year to try and launch it. The past scheme we talked about as well was about actually taking a shop and spending some money on doing it up. Obviously a 3-month scheme, we're not going to be able to do that. And that worries me, that we're just going to end up with something that doesn't look very attractive in the middle of our high street. I'd like to see the scheme go ahead, but it be done well, rather than it just looking like we've just taken over an old Poundland YMCA and just put a few tables inside. And then the other thing is, for this proposal, we're talking about craft stores. I can't see that craft stores would want a permanent base, 5-6 days a week. We see on other makers markets, they move around different towns. They like being able to move. A lot of them tend to have other jobs they only want to do on a Saturday. And also we're not tourist town. Our footprint in our high street is not constantly changing, so there's a limited market. I think we'd have to be going out and finding gaps in our high street. We should be attracting people that want to bring something to Haverhill High Street that doesn't currently exist. I don't know, for example, there could be someone that wants to sell bread, or they feel that there's a pet shop's missing from the high street, or maybe someone that's got a shop that's on the industrial estate that wants to bring it into the town centre location. I think they should be the people we're going after.
John, thank you. Councillor Marks.
Much of what Aaron has just said, business proposals were my bread and butter, as indeed they were with Bruce's, and I would pull this to pieces with alarm, to be frank. I think, I love the fact that we need to do something for the town centre. We've just got the bus situation where people can't travel in or out. We've got a footfall situation. We've got a lot of people working. We've got a financial crisis coming. And I've had a very big discussion today on the Landlords Forum, which, as you all know, our landlords and all of the landlords are putting up their prices significantly, which is going to reduce massively the amount of available money that people have. We've got the heating crisis. I think conceptually, I like it. I just think this is too quick. We need to sit down. We need to have a proper plan in a proper place for the long term with, and I would see it, that you've got some stands that are permanent and others that are fluid. And I quite like the fluid ones being the ones that we build, where people can hire them for a short space of time, bring their offer and give it a trial, and if it doesn't work, and then the more permanent ones. And places like Luton and that, they've had indoor markets for years and they're hugely successful. And indeed, of course, the fruit and veg people go in them as well and make it a very comprehensive market. I mean, I tell you, we used to travel regularly because it was a good market. I'm concerned. I think as a business plan, this has not been well put together or thought through in terms of the problems. And also, you've got indemnity insurance, which doesn't seem to fall under that as well. So they're not cheap. Who's going to provide those? Where is the risk? I think there's lots of things we need to all sit down, put together the sort of things like Aaron has said. What do we believe the people in this town would come and buy if it was in the high street? What is it that they criticise that we don't support our high street? What is it that they want to see that would make them come here? Because we don't really know, do we? So I'm conceptually up for it. We did talk about 13s. Do you remember many years ago we talked about all the 13s? And they would have been absolutely wonderful for boutique type shops. They would just be wonderful. And that never got off the ground. We never pushed that forward. It was such a shame, really. So I'm afraid in terms of this proposal, I really couldn't support it as it stands.
Okay, thank you. I've got some others who've already spoken, so if I may put my 2 pennies worth in. As Councillor Lucarini says, we spent an inordinate amount of time trying to look at pods. I mean, looked at Henderson's, setting up in there, which I thought would have been a brilliant place with proper glass or whatever, divided shops, a proper indoor market and everything else. So that disappointed at West Suffolk again, never did it. They offered Empire Yard for nothing, put pods on it, they just said no, we don't want it. So very disappointing. So I was quite intrigued where it said West Suffolk Markets have expressed their support, and the development officer knew nothing about it until Saturday. He was the one who actually manages the markets, so that was a bit strange. I think, yes, supporting the businesses is very important, but equally they need to help themselves. They don't support themselves, they don't help us. Very rarely, they don't put most of them don't put their hands in their pockets when it comes to the Christmas thing coming up. Some may stay open, some may not. We have got a problem with the high street that is, as we all know, is dying a little bit. So, and I've just read some things there. I think the January-February expectation of having business, I think, is ain't going to happen. So I think Councillor Thurman will agree the markets that January to March period just die a death. Most of them don't turn up. Other people like yourself, of course. But we don't get the stalls. I was a bit concerned about the fact it was dedicated to arts and crafts, because I asked Ronnie's Bakery on Saturday, have they been asked? No. I said, would you be interested? Well, we might be. So there could be an indoor, something. I'm not saying come off the market, but they were saying might be trade on a Tuesday or something. I don't know. Councillor Mark's mentioned I've been down here, public liability insurance. You've already mentioned that. One thing I was a little bit concerned. We seem to be going massively. It's a double-fronted shop.
Yes, huge.
We've had other shops that I think. Have we spoken to the Fowler family for Henderson's?
Henderson's got a planning application.
I know they have, but it's not. We're only talking about 3 months here. They're a local family who been around for donkey's years. I wasn't certain whether this rent also covered upstairs, or was it just the shop? I don't know if we know that. Legal costs, obviously, to set this up. And also I was intrigued by this Anglian Revenue Partnership could not find a property on a database. It took me 30 seconds to find it. It's on the National Valuation. No, I'm not surprised at ARP, because what happened when we were doing COVID, a number of businesses I went around trying to find them, I think it was several didn't exist. They'd been replaced by another building in some cases. That was ridiculous. I am concerned about the costs because, you know, if you get 15 traders, that's fine. Why don't you really get 10? Who's going to collect the money? You know, there's that administration involved. That's a cost. Who's going to open it up? There's a cost. And I really, if we're going to do this, I think it's right. We need to have a proper, detailed breakdown of everything. Equally, looking at other business shops that may be single unit, because you might even be able to get small business rate relief on a, you know, if the shop's not too big. So I have a big problem. Conceptually, I don't have a problem with it. But I think, as someone said, it's a little bit too late in the year to do this. As you rightly said, you know, you're going to start in December. If you started it when the weather's and also see what the economy does next year. You know, people just may not have any money. A couple of final things. We do have the Makers Market. We had one last weekend. I wonder how many of these traders have actually bothered trading on the Makers Market. I don't know who they are. These 10 to 15 or 25. I don't know if that's, you know, have they tried it? You know, have they sold? Because the Makers Market, as Councillor Greeny says, they will not come every day of the week. They only want to come once a month because they trade elsewhere. They saturate the market, to use a pun. Finally, I did wonder, and we've done it before, and this is looking at Dan now, is why don't we try it in the Arts Centre auditorium?
We've done that before.
We've done that before, and see how they get on. Once a week, once a month, whatever, once in 2 weeks. Don't know if it's possible, but to put something in there to see whether, you know, there is a demand. If there is a demand, then you start looking, because you don't want to take up the whole of the Arts Centre forever. But I just wonder whether that's something, because obviously, I don't know if we're having on the family night, is that craft fair here again? It is, yeah. So there's another craft fair. But I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So we've got Councillor Luke. Oh, sorry, let me just tell you, Paul.
I thought about it on holiday. I mean, the concept is great. I mean, it'd be nice to see a shop in the town filled and think they're doing something, but I've worked in this sort of place before, so I love this sort of places. Art and craft is not a 6-day a week thing for people. Unless you're in a thriving town with plenty of footfall. I don't think it'd last, to tell you the truth. I don't think it'd be sustainable, I really don't. If you had that indoor market, I think that'd work. I mean, I worked in Lowe's 32 years ago, that's where I started off, and a lot of start off there. It was a good start. But things have changed now, I mean. It's a massive building inside there, and I don't think you get, I honestly don't think you get 10 traders at the moment. I don't think you would. As you say, you can't pick and choose when you're going to trade. I mean, it's hard in January, February. That's it, where it goes. At the start of December, I don't think you give a chance. I don't think you would. It's a shame because it looks like the procedure we'll do is out of the town, it would look nice, I'd like it, but I don't think it'd work. Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. The Councillor Lucrini, then Councillor Brown, then Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, I kind of suggested that I don't want to see this scrapped, because it is a good idea, but maybe for the moment this current proposal needs to be parked so that we can actually develop it. And maybe actually go back to people like West Suffolk Council. I know there's other people we could approach about actually getting some investment for this. Because I don't think we can do it alone. I don't think the Town Council has the funds to be able to successfully pull this off. We needed that 100,000 from West Suffolk. Can I also suggest...
That's for capital, of course.
Yeah. I can also just say for West Suffolk councillors, because we've got a meeting at the end of this month with Ian Gallagher and Jude Baird. Maybe this is something that we need to bring up again and put it back on the table, that this is something obviously happened in Haverhill.
Okay, so basically what we're saying is, I don't think anything was surprised, now is a very difficult time, and just the economy, as well as the fact that I should think just in terms of getting the face sheet ordered and up, you can slice straight past Christmas quite frankly by the lead time. So you would be opening in a poor time. So work on a business plan. I think we can talk to people like Mentor, etc. in terms of small businesses and stuff. And then, so effectively spend some time bringing it back. And by the time it's kind of polished then the chances are it's going to be a far better time of the year in 2023, and we'll also know what the economists do.
Councillor Thurman, I've got Tony Brown and Charles. So no, I know you've got to get off, Paul, so I'm not done.
I was saying, that building, I mean, for a minimal fee, it can be painted inside, can make little wooden units in there, it can be nice, it wouldn't be a great expenditure, but it's all there, really. But then you've got to bear another thing in mind. You need someone down there to keep an eye on things. If you've got a few traders, you need someone there to keep an eye on what's going on. Some open up, some to close up, some to clean it. I mean, when these traders, I mean, would an arty trade, they sign up for 3 months to trade? I don't think so. I don't think so. I wish they would. I mean, I'd love to see it, but I don't think that stresses it.
Yeah, I still think it's a fantastic idea. But, you know, Aaron and others have come up with some good points, and the main one being around the town centre master planning group. You know, the demise of that at West Suffolk's behest is an absolute disgrace. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into trying to get things done and talked about on that committee, and it was such an absolute travesty that it just basically got cancelled. We had Suffolk County Council, it was highly populated West Suffolk officers. And I still don't understand the reason why everyone just withdrew and just left us, because this would have been a prime example of something we could have got our teeth into at that committee. It was a high-powered committee. Unfortunately, as it seems that West Suffolk and the County Council basically walked away from the town centre as it is at the moment, and have left it all to do with us. And the thing is, it's either us or nothing. The people are desperate, in the town to have something to go to. They don't want to be jumping on buses to go to Cambridge, etc., etc. If we can, no, you can't. No, exactly. And that's part of the problem. We need to try and provide this sort of thing in town. I mean, it isn't just our job, but we can do what we can to do it. So I take aboard a lot of points that have been made. Maybe it's I'm always an optimist around things. I like to push things forward and go into it. And I'd love to see this up and running and just make the best of it. And everyone put their energy into making it work. But some good points being made. Unfortunately, I can't see it being over by Christmas, and I'd really love it to be over by Christmas. But maybe a little bit of reflection. But I'm 100% behind something like this happening, and I really mean that. And let's be positive about things. You're right about craft stalls, and they're a sort of one a week thing maybe. But let's get other types of stalls in there. And okay, the market is quiet in January and February. You know why? Because it's bloody freezing, dark, and raining. But if you've got a nice, bright shop with all the lights on and people in there, people will go in there. So, looking on that optimistic side of things, I think it's a great idea. And it'd be great if we can iron out, the problems that have been highlighted and make it work instead of being negative about things.
Give the clients. Any trader going in there should have their own liability insurance. Secondly, I definitely would second your proposal if it is a proposal.
Yeah,
Councillor Luther.
halfway forward as a proposal.
Okay, could you just reiterate that proposal?
It was a bit long.
No, Colin. What Colin said earlier on is basically, okay, that's fine. As long as you're happy with that.
We're not going to go ahead now.
No.
We're going to park it, develop the business plan, and then bring it back and see
I think we need to look at all the costs, the income, the outgoing, everything, and the benefits.
Thing is, in the meantime, the landlord might give that building up, might not be available in the future.
Well, I know one business that was trying to take it on.
And that's the problem, you get somebody set up and then you've got nowhere to go after 3 months.
But the business plan, if the business plan can work, it's not particularly building specific.
No.
No.
And that's why I think testing it here to see what the income is like.
It may just well form a little group just to try and move forward, because otherwise it's just going to go on the back burner. It never happened again. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about.
If you come with a pop-up, it can pop up anywhere.
Yeah.
But I say, I don't really agree with having it in the upstairs, because the whole thing about a shop is that, you know, that's why they pay for shop windows. They want to see what's inside as they walk past. You know, they won't know what's in here. You know,
I think upstairs is a good proposal in itself, that it's something else in the art centre, it's just been another craft market.
Yeah.
Drives people up this
Yeah.
town.
I was thinking of that from
it's
a
different
trial, not permanent, just a trial, just to see if there's a demand for retail
You can't
space.
judge it on one thing, John.
no, but I say the big thing, driver of shops, is that people walk past. Not a lot of people plan to go in a shop. They just walk, let's put you in there, let's go in.
But we all know the footfall in the town is dire.
Well, I know, but I'm saying on the optimistic side of things, we've got to try and help it and try and do what we can. And I might understand everyone's, you know, concerns, but I say it's an opportunity, you know.
It's the same, every town's the same, we're all in a situation.
Yeah.
If you don't do something soon, you want to just step back and walk away, otherwise it's
Yeah.
not the same. you know.
I think we've agreed. Okay. Right, so we've got a proposal seconded by Councillor Davidson. You happy with that?
Do you remember exactly what proposal?
So basically, the idea was developed into a full business plan. It basically is, isn't it? So it'll come back, everything else you said will then come through.
Yeah.
Can we set a date we talk about, see
Or
what
feasibility study, maybe.
What about forming a small group to drive it forward? Just
If people think that'd be useful to do.
What do you think? Do you think
Is
small group?
it about the next council?
No. I think the discussion really here is, when we're talking about something, a business plan like this is going to take several months to put together. So, yeah, looking at something kind of more Easter, I should have thought, at the very earliest.
Would it be Sarah developing a business plan?
Well, I think what we need to do is get some support for Sarah from people who've done business planning before, etc., and can chip in constructively.
That's what I wanted, it's a feasibility study.
I just wonder if we actually need a small group, or if we know who's working on the business plan, or if it's just over emails, you know, putting some of these ideas
Yeah,
into that
can be like
process.
that, can be, that saves the committee.
And the expertise, you know, people like
Yeah,
Paul,
that's been my life. I don't know about, you know, I don't know.
Sharon,
to see that.
people who know what they're talking about.
But sometimes I do.
So yes, it's a developed idea in the form that a group to support Sarah in doing it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Not
I know it's probably going to sound a crazy idea, but we've got an election next year, and every one of us is going to be walking around sticking things through people's doors. It's a great opportunity to stick, no, but to ask people what the, quite separate from any election, just, you know, you do it for just to let people, to ask people what they would like to see in the town. Because an awful lot of people don't read social media, they don't know what we're trying to do. It's one way of at least informing people.
Well, we've got a proposal and a second there, so I can show of hands, please. It's unanimous. Lovely, thank you very much. And you, yeah, no, that's fine, I appreciate you've got long night. Thank you. Paul. Right, move on to item 6, public forum. Well, no, after that. Right, moving on back to item number 7. We're on to the Creative Direction Arts Centre reports. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you. So, same as last time, really. I've written and circulated my report. I don't want to bore you all with going through it, having sent it so you could read it in advance. So, I think probably it's better if I just take questions arising from the report or anything. Obviously, if there's anything additional, then you can always ask me, but I think that's the best way to deal with it rather than go through a report that you've already read.
Captain Brown.
Yes, so I say thank you, Daniel. You've done a fantastic job from what I see so far. So you've put a lot of energy and effort into it, so it really is appreciated. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Captain Smith. What was I going to say? You mentioned something about the Leslie Garrett situation. Has that been cancelled then?
Yeah, sadly, I don't quite know what it is because I don't want to pry too much, but at the last minute Leslie had to go up north to be with her family and cancelled all engagements, including ours. Unfortunately, doubly, next month she starts the national tour of My Fair Lady. So it means we can't have her until that's over. So it's June by the time we can have her again. But she has committed to a new date in June. So everybody that booked is being given that date and the option to either be refunded or to transfer.
And you mentioned something, I saw something like a figure of 96% of pantomime sales on last year's figures. Does that mean we're still not back?
That's out of date now. I'm pleased to report we're actually ahead now of pantomime sales. If you track them against previous years, including the most recent one, we're ahead. So that.
Because last year, if you base it on last year, would have been pretty low last year, I take it.
No, actually last year was on the way back up again. The year before and the year before that obviously were bad. But no, we are, if you sort of try and even it out across the past sort of 10 years that we've been doing pantomimes with That's Entertainment, then we are ahead in money and numbers, if you see what I mean. Those are the two things that count.
It's interesting because I put posters up last week for pantomime, so I don't know whether that had an effect. This week I'm talking about, this last few days.
Well, also this big banner's gone up.
Yeah.
More visual.
That's amazing.
Hi, we haven't had a chance to meet. You met my wife Lisa recently. The Watching the Warm project, you've got a timetable for November. It's still very early on. What sort of numbers?
Yeah, just going to ask the same question. Sorry.
It really, really varies. Sometimes, when we first started, it actually wasn't that cold, even though it was October. And so I don't know whether to begin with, because it wasn't cold, people were still out and about and weren't really thinking about it. It could be that. But it did start slow. Then all of a sudden, we had one film where you couldn't get a seat. I can't remember which one that was. My Fair Lady, you're quite right. So it could be the film, it could be the weather, it could be both. It could be that it's just taking time for people to realise it's happening. But then again today we did Dad's Army, and that was about probably 50% full. I mean, it's in the cafe, so we're not talking about big numbers. So it does really vary, but I suppose with a free offer, you're always going to get a bit of that, aren't you? Because people might decide, even 5 to 1, that they're not going to come after all at 1 o'clock because it's free, so they've nothing to lose, have they? So I think it does really vary. And I can't, it's too early days really to be able to tell you intelligently whether I think it's the film, or whether I think it's the weather, or what I think it is. My best guess at the minute is it's the film.
Can I just say, I think it's a brilliant idea for a project. There's a lot of lonely people, and I only wish we could somehow reach out and get to those people who are isolated, because it's a no-pressure event, which is nice and relaxed, and a chance to get out of your house and meet other people. And I think hats off to you. Thank you for organising.
That's a really good feedback on social media and press as well.
People are loving it, So hopefully there is a cost to it, obviously, that I've mentioned there, even though we've done some deals. So hopefully we'll get a bit of money to keep it going for a bit longer than just a month. But the reason that there is only November at the moment is because we don't have the funding to carry on beyond that currently. But it's a ever-changing situation, so we'll hope. There is an application in that Colin did, so we'll see.
I reckon it's down to the equipment I gave, that's what it is.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, the only thing that I would, it'd be interesting to see the analysis of the coffee bar takings.
Just what I was going to ask that actually.
Yeah, so
What will be offering in the
anyway, sorry, I was just
going to ask on that, what we're offering in the coffee bar, what are people being offered? Because I haven't seen a menu.
Tea, coffee, tea cakes, scones,
that sort of stuff. Well,
That sort of
yeah,
stuff.
The menu's out
I
there.
haven't had it, I'll have a look on the go.
So, Councillor Lucarini?
Yeah, I was going to talk about watching the wrong project. Where's the funding come from for this?
We've applied to West Suffolk for funds.
So they've given us money, have they?
They haven't given it yet.
Okay. So when we say £80 a film, that's not costing the town council money then?
We hope not. We hope that they'll pay for it.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I was slightly concerned that obviously we've reopened the cafe so we could move staff around, and I'm slightly concerned, £80 a film, that's going to cost the taxpayer.
The separate part.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. The only other comment on it is opposite to what maybe has been on social media. I had someone say to me they actually walked out of the cafe because they come in with a friend to have a chat to find a film playing.
That's right, that's right.
I do wonder whether it actually could have the opposite effect. I don't know as well. Does it impact on upstairs? Obviously, you're trying to put a program on films upstairs. How does that?
No, the answer to the second question is easy. That's no, because we've only programmed films on the days when we haven't got something upstairs. Because it would, yes. And also, you don't want a double hit, do you? What we're trying to do is drive people that are coming to things upstairs into the coffee bar. So no, because we've kept the two separate, and we will, if it continues, we will continue to keep them separate. Your first point is an interesting one, because yes, the answer is yes, that might happen. People might hate having a film on and prefer to just sit and have a chat, and if that happens enough, then we'd have to take a view on whether we continue it, or whether we put it in a different room, or what we do. The initial thought was, we're starting up this coffee bar, we want to give people every excuse to come in, every reason to come in, every special offer, every quirk, every gimmick, if you like, that we can possibly throw at it to make it different, to get interest, to get people talking, to drive people in for whatever reason.
Sure.
And so therefore we thought, well, let's put the films in there and see, because it's free. There isn't anywhere else you can go and watch a film for free while you're having a cup of coffee. So you're right, it might go one way, or it might go the other way, and we're keeping that under review. We in fact had to talk about it today. One thing that we have changed from the beginning is, in the beginning we tried to make it a bit more film-like, i.e. we dim the lights, we've stopped doing that now. We're just putting the film on, so that people don't feel like they're intruding. So today, for instance, with Dad's Army, there were people sitting at one end of the room watching a film intently. There were people sitting closer to the counter, the other end of the room, who were only sort of half watching the film and having a chat. But with the lights on, it seems to make a less formal, kind of a bit more like a relaxed screening. And that seems to be a bit more welcoming to the people that aren't there for the film. But it does need watching, quite right.
Yeah, that makes me more happier that it's under review. I just don't want us to shoot ourselves in the foot that we provide something that is actually doing the opposite, putting people off.
Captain Dave Smith.
That was pretty much along the same sort of lines. Are everybody's turning up to these films actually buying copies? How many are they buying? And is it putting people off coming in when they see something like that? So basically, it's already been covered. Yeah.
The other thing I should say is, when we've got more figures, the figures will, what can't see, can't lie. The figures will tell us, won't they? Because we'll be able to see, because we're not doing films every day, because some days there are things upstairs, we will be able to see, won't we, directly, whether the figures are down on film days and up on other days, and so on and so on, or down in the afternoons and up in the mornings because the films are in the afternoons, or whatever.
I don't know whether it'd be that straightforward, though, of course, because if we don't put a film on because we've got U3A in the building, then the sales in the cafe will go sky high, even if we had never done films any other day, because obviously the events we've got on will also attract people in.
Although, if I can just add to that, because my till system you can analyse by hour, or in fact can actually analyse by so it might be, yes, because U3A are normally in the morning, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see, so your gross takings per day might be high. You can at least say, well, actually, we will take it in the morning, not in the afternoon. So, yeah, something we need to look at. Yeah, once we hit.
It might need now to kind of collect feedback.
Yes,
having
I mean,
conversations.
she does, and she's very good at that. She talks to every customer.
Yeah.
And also, you know, we're only next door, and I'm in and out all the time, of the coffee bar all the time, and, you know, you do pick up the vibe. But yeah, I think it's too soon.
Okay.
It does tick our boxes doing something for a warm hub as well, of course.
So I've got you on the list. Councillor Marks?
Yeah, 90% of my questions have been asked, but which is great, because obviously when everybody's thinking along the same lines, it's very helpful. Just wondered whether, you know, you could do, there's a lot of talent, as you know, you've done your talent events, which people want to come along and do things for free because they want to promote their activities, much like the cities. I just wondered whether it's worth chucking in the occasional one of those instead of a film to say, today we're going to have, you know, a 60s theme. I don't know, just sort of throw it open really for that. And as Joe said, we've still got an awful lot of people who are not engaging in the town, and they are lonely and they are isolated, and the winter's going to come really hard when they can't afford the heating. So, you know, I guess not everybody wants to be a film, not everybody wants to. So perhaps if there are a few other things, even a bingo afternoon, and I don't joke, because honest to goodness, the amount of people who've asked for bingo is amazing. Just a thought whether we can kind of vary the theme a bit.
Yes, we can. I mean, if we get the funding to continue, there is an amount of money each day or each week or whatever allocated to licenses for films. There's no reason why, instead of a film one time, we couldn't use that money and give that as a donation to a quartet from the Haverhill Singers, for instance, come and sing instead of doing a film. So the answer is yes, we could definitely.
A lot of these people come for free, you know, come because they want to showcase themselves. So there are local acts and local people who are very talented who would come for free, or sing along, or you know, there are quite a lot of other things, aren't there, that could be could attract it. I mean, that part of the idea is to promote cafe again, really, isn't it? To keep cafe going. So,
I mean, if we find that people, that Councillor Lucarini's point comes good, and people are being put off by a film, then they arguably might be more put off by something more intrusive, i.e., you know, a quartet singing, or you know, some dancers dancing or whatever, in which case that would make it worse. But I think we've just got to see, and if people have an appetite for being entertained while they have a cup of tea, and it doesn't have to be limited to films. You're absolutely right. We do also have Colin's glamorous assistant, let's put this.
Don't tell me you got him singing and dancing.
I've put together this, I think it was you, Councillor Marks, actually at the last meeting, that said about trying to theme, you know, the sales, if you like, you know, the menu sometimes in the coffee bar to give people an impetus to come. So we've done this whole programme, which is also published on Every Table and on our Facebook pages and all that.
Is it anything these to take away on the table?
Yes, in fact, so the other day Mel came in because they'd all gone because people were taking them at such a rate, so we printed more. But so these are things that are linked to the programme at the Arts Centre. So when we show Emily the film, for instance, we're doing a Bronte afternoon tea. And every Friday we're doing, sort of in tribute and in partnership with the history group, we're doing a heritage tea. And so they get tea and a scone, and they get one of the History Society's books for free as well as part of the package. So that we're trying to link the offer at the coffee bar with the groups in the centre as well. So this is just November and the first couple of days of December. So you can see there's quite a lot, and that, you know, we can continue to do this if people like it. And it's just a nice link with whatever happens to be going on that day or that week.
Which I like, that's good, I'll pick those up.
Can I, before we get on to Councillor Lewis and then Councillor Brown, I think we need to get this more widely published.
Promoted, yeah, because I don't know.
I've not seen it go out in Haverhill or Suffolk, for example.
It's not what's on in Haverhill.
Not whatever,
But we can pick leaflets up on the way out and you can get
yeah,
them.
that's fine. Councillor Davidson. Well done.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I like it. That time when I was there on the very first day doing the launch. Interesting. Various comments. Yeah, I'm concerned about funding. Because it seems to be at the moment if we don't get funding, then this is costing Haverhill Town Council. And secondly, when I did a little speech, I did sort of say something like, you know, you're more than welcome to come, but just don't bring your own tea and sandwiches. But there was one lady there that didn't buy tea, coffee or anything like that. There's nothing we can do. Obviously, we prefer them to be spending in the cafe bar, but yeah, there was one lady that just sat there and watched the film. A comment about the noise and, you know, the accessibility. So yeah, at one point in the middle of this really good film, it was Oliver. Two very loud people were talking, so I actually went and said, I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but the point is, they were very, very loud. One of them was staff, by the way. Oops. Your comment about not wanting to see the film there, well, you could actually see the film here. You could get 35 people in here. The ones at the front would be sort of like that, somewhat. But obviously the TV would have to be moved if you wouldn't do that. So I think there are solutions, but I think it's not definitely going to be something that we move it here, because you also want people to get the tea and coffee there. So I think it's early days, and as you say, Daniel, we've got to wait and see what the figures are looking like. But as far as I'm concerned, the last thing is the most important thing, and I don't want it, but we haven't got the bad weather yet. We just haven't. Wait for another couple of weeks or so.
That's only
The
because
bad
you're
weather really
Scottish.
comes. No, trust me, if you look at the figures, still not bad weather. Cold weather. Today is 13, 14 degrees. Sorry, that's not cold.
No.
Wait until it goes below 10 or so. That's cold. I'm also concerned about how do the people actually get here, because the people that are at risk, the vulnerable people, how do they actually walk down here and things like that? I don't know. They certainly don't get the 13 bus or the 131, we know that. And in conjunction with the churches are doing, I think it's fantastic. We are looking to try and protect the community. So we are doing our best, but it's early days.
And that's a hell of a good rate. And when would you get, you know, that's tremendous. You wouldn't even let you get
I'm
cost for that.
conscious of time because it's 9:15 up there. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. And as Bruce has suggested, it does become, you know, an inconvenience for people who use the cafeteria. You know, we should possibly think about bringing it in here. You know, we could run it. And yeah, if this funding becomes an issue, I'd still like to see it done at least once a week, because you know, the demographic that we're sort of after, maybe a lot of those don't use social media. A lot of elderly people, vulnerable people, they use word of mouth, and you know, hopefully they'll build in time. And I'm quite happy that people come in here and don't buy a cup of tea and sit down and watch it. Absolutely, you know, we don't know people's personal circumstances. They might be down to their last 2p. You know, I'd hope the cafe staff, if they notice someone sitting there all the time without a cup of tea, will actually give them one. You know, but this is what we should be doing as a community, and you know, I think it's a good thing, especially as Bruce said, the cold weather isn't here, the full impact of, you know, the economy hadn't hit home yet, so you know, this is something that we should nurture along and work on, and you know, I think at least we should do this once a week, even if it ends up in here or something like that, just something, somewhere people can watch an old film and have a cup of tea. Sound like a socialist. Like something it is.
Sorry, I need to move on.
I know, just one thing that's not on there is the time. So you're not saying what time you're offering these things. Can I just...
Because they're on offer all day that day.
All the time the cafe's open? Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a specials board.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because you did say it tied in with something you were showing later.
Oh, no,
so
sorry, I meant conceptually.
It's fine. It's just me not understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your report, Dan. There is a second part to this agenda item, but we'll get onto that very quickly. On the Heritage Lottery application, which I can put on screen now, I noticed it says we have received a strong response from over 120 people. I don't know who you asked because I never saw anything out on social media.
It was on Facebook.
Did it appear on Facebook? What, out on Facebook? Okay, it wasn't obvious then. Did you? Okay, because it scrolls off quickly, and that's wondered why. Now, Colin will actually say where you can make an answer from 10 people or 1,000 people get the same result. I don't know you're extremely fast, but that's fine. No, I just wondered, that's fine. As long as it was there, because I missed it. And you and I did have a quick discussion the other day about the West Suffolk meeting about a possible new art centre. You know, as Councillor Brown said earlier on, that we lost those meetings. They cancelled all those meetings with no discussion with us whatsoever as West Suffolk councillors. But I was going to ask about what's happened to the Arts Centre Development Group, which I was chairing. That's it, Sean.
Well, now we have a committee administrator again who will be able to have the capacity to hold these additional meetings. Not to the West Suffolk meeting at the moment, it's not into kind of the stuff that we want to discuss here. It's into kind of proof of concept, audience numbers, and where people can come from, all the kind of technical stuff that backs up a financial argument for something like this. In terms of actually, what's it going to look like, what's it going to be like, and the rest of it, that's really where the Arts Centre Development Group was there. But, as you've mentioned, Arts Centre Development Group, you very nicely segued into 7A.
See what I did there? Yes. So, Daniel, the next part, which is the reflection of proposals for capital improvements to the Arts Centre.
Yes, so really this is here because I feel like I need a steer from council, from members, about how we want me to progress any capital improvements that might be necessary to the Arts Centre. I've made it clear in previous meetings that it is very firmly my view that the Arts Centre does desperately need some work. The level that we're sitting on now needs arguably the most work, I think, in order for the Arts Centre to operate artistically and commercially successfully in the future. But also there is some work needed on the level above us in terms of the way that people access the building, storage, facility, dressing rooms, and so on and so on. And so I have been looking at all of the previous iterations of capital projects for this building, and there have been several, and I'm sure you know them better than I do. But I have been through them. And there are some very, very flashy ones, and therefore expensive ones, and very ambitious. And there are some more practical, arguably more practical, but maybe a bit less ambitious ones. And it's actually the practical but less ambitious ones that I believe would work. The reason for that is that I think what my view is, I think that what we need to be doing is keeping half an eye to how this building might be used should Haverhill ever get another venue. And, there may well be people in this room that don't believe that will ever happen, and you can't be blamed for that. But nevertheless, we have to bear it in mind, because we don't ever want to throw good money after bad. So in the back of my mind all the time, or maybe not so much in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, well, if we're to spend money on this building, how can we spend it so that the building would still be as useful, even if a new facility was built? And then I'm thinking, perhaps the other 50% of me is thinking, but if another building is never built, how do we future-proof this one and make it artistically and commercially as successful as it can be? And I believe actually that the drawings that have been done that were less ambitious and slightly more practical answer those two questions more successfully. So there is a drawing that I'm drawn to the most, which essentially opens up this level, takes out a lot of walls, replaces the toilets, adds a new studio space rather than this studio space would become bigger, these walls would go. It opens up the front of the building, restores actually the front of the building back to how it originally was, i.e. you could see straight through. So Councillor Brown was talking about earlier, and I was nodding furiously when you were saying that shops succeed because people can see that they're open and walk into them. The same can be said about galleries, art centres, particularly ones that are placed on high streets. It also allows for gallery space, space for the history group, all those things are included in this plan for this level. And then the level above us, actually it's relatively modest what the plans are suggesting, which is a new entrance, where the temporary one is now, a more permanent version of that, effectively, so that audiences can enter straight from the car park into the auditorium rather than coming around here. That will become important in a minute, I'll explain why. And then the room at the back of the art centre above, which is a beautiful room and is currently full of chairs and lights and rubbish, is released back into proper use, and a store is built on the back. And the store is also important because it allows for direct loading straight. You can drive a lorry up to the back of the art centre and load straight in, which at the moment we suffer from not being able to do that enormously. It also makes, crucially, for me anyway, and I think for lots of people, and probably as we move forward into the future, become more and more important, the whole art centre completely disabled friendly. Because at the moment, if you were a disabled performer, for instance, you couldn't perform on that stage because you can't get up there, let alone have a dressing room or go to the toilet. And coming back, the reason that I mentioned about the new entrance at the back is because what this plan also does is it effectively slices the building in two in terms of usability. So what it does is it enables you to use this floor and the above floor independently of each other. They have their own entrance, their own exit, their own toilets, their own bar and cafe. So in the future, I could see a world where if a big new venue did come about, then the future-proofing for this place would be, well, it doesn't matter, because this floor becomes Haverhill Museum, Gallery, Tourist Information Centre, whatever you want it to be, and then the floor above remains as effectively the civic centre for Haverhill, the place where events, civic and other events happen. The full council probably continues to meet. We would continue our arts centre, our arts picture house film programme, because that wouldn't be appropriate in a new bigger venue, because frankly the economics wouldn't work like they do here. And you carry on with your weddings and your private hire and your race nights and all those things, and maybe some of the comedy and things that are smaller and wouldn't go to the new place. And of course we know that there is a deficit in community space in Haverhill. So if this place wasn't a full-time art centre, then that large space would be much more available to the community, arguably in different ways than it is now. So the splitting of the usability of the building also appeals to me, because it, to me, future-proofs the investment, because it gives a big answer to one of the big questions at the moment that certainly West Suffolk and others are asking, which is, well, what would you do with the art centre? Haverhill doesn't have a museum, you don't have a gallery, you don't have, so it could be this level could be any of those things. And of course, by that time, because of the investment made, it would function more successfully in that kind of life because you would be able to see straight through. It would have much more of a connection with the high street physically as well as, you know, psychologically. So I think that I'm not professing to be 100% there or that plan is 100% right, but I'm saying that I think you do have something in your back catalogue which is pretty close. And my discussions with the team here, with the team at West Suffolk and Colin about the new venue and everything bring me to kind of the same conclusion, as does Michael Holden's report, which is the conclusion that I've just described in terms of the future for this place. The beauty of that plan also is that if the other project never happens, then things like the cafe, coffee bar, etc. can have a proper chance. They can have a proper chance as part of the high street. We can, at last, branch into proper exhibitions, proper visual arts presence, proper exhibitions in terms of the history and heritage of Haverhill, because we will have an exhibition space, we'll have a separate studio space so we can expand our participation, education, learning programme, maybe the many dance schools and performing arts schools that I was talking to Lisa about, Lisa Mason about when I met her a few days ago, would be very thankful for more studio space. And as I've described, upstairs will be much more functional because it will have proper storage, a proper load in and load out, will be fully disabled, accessible, etc., etc. The one thing that it doesn't do, because it can't, but I don't believe any plan could, is give you more seats. But if the new venue comes along, then you would rue the day that you put more seats in here, because you would then create a white elephant for yourselves. It's actually better to leave it the size it is. If a new venue doesn't come along, then we will just continue to punch above our weight with 200 seats. It's as simple as that. It's better to have 200 seats full than 500 seats half empty. That's my view. We can make it work with 200 seats. It'd be lovely to have 500, but we can make it work. So, it'd be lovely to put some more seats in there, but we can't. And so, that I think is just a non-starter. So it shouldn't be in the equation. You have to think about it the other way around and think, well, how can we make the best of the 200 seats we do have and the 4 walls that we do have, while protecting that investment in case we ever do get 500 seats somewhere else. So that's where I am on it. But obviously there are stages that we need to go through in order to move anything forward. The plan, I've said that it's more conservative with a small c and less ambitious and more practical, and all of those things are true compared to almost every other vision or iteration you've had for this building. But nevertheless, the costing for it, I think it was costed at the time, which will be well out of date now, but as over £1 million. So you're still talking about an over £1 million investment. So I suppose what I'm getting at is, how would you, and do you think I'm barking up the right tree? 2, how would you like me to progress it? And 3, I suppose, would you like me to progress it? There is one nuance, which is we could go for external funding, or you could decide to not go for external funding and plough your own field. Either way, from my point of view, is possible. I'm very happy to go into back for external funding. I think because this is a heritage building, you have an angle with the Heritage Lottery Fund who I've worked an awful lot with. But if we go for external funding, then we are going to need some help in terms of professional advisors, etc., to get us through those hoops, because believe me, I've just done it. I've just raised £4 million in the last 2 years to build a theatre, mostly funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. And, I did a hell of a lot of work, but I couldn't have done it without the right advisors, and that comes at a cost. So, and those costs obviously need to be met before you get the funding, so that would mean the town council, funding some development costs, etc., etc. So you know, you can appreciate where I'm coming from. I sort of know now where I think we ought to go, but I need the council to tell me how you would like me to progress it and what, you know, if you want to spend any money and how you want to spend it, etc., etc.
Thank you, Dan. If I'm going to speak first this time, I think. Yeah, I know it's bad news. Basically, what you're describing, I think, is what was phase 2 of the original conversion plans from about 30 years ago, plus. Scenery dock, toilets upstairs, and those sort of things, which I personally think, you know, the new venue, unless we can get some sort of investment or payback from something else, you know, on a site that, you know, is given to us, I think maybe being a bit pessimistic here, a bit sort of non-starter, certainly in the near term. We're talking about capital investment here. Are we looking at things like large expenditure that would help put on shows? I'm thinking about, I've been going on for ages about replacement lighting, stage lighting. You know, we have a lot of effort by the tech team in having to light something, and they spend hours, particularly pantomime, spend hours and days doing this, where with more modern lighting systems, you know, some of our gear is nearly 30 years old. And I'm not saying we need to replace it because it's still working. You know, it's one of those things that we don't touch it. But more modern things like the Apex and other things, you know, they can put on a show quite quickly because they can just sit in front of a computer and change something. You know, if you want a hue of that blue, you can change it. Are you also thinking about those sort of potentially capital items as well, or are you talking about structural changes only?
The picture I just gave did not include stuff, if you let in colloquial terms.
Yeah.
Because I am ever aware that, you know, the bill just keeps getting bigger, and somebody has got to find the money, even if it's the Heritage Lottery, they would still require a match. So, you know, even if they gave you $1 million, you'd have to probably come up with $500,000 to match. So, you know, we're not talking about small money, even without that investment. It is my experience that you get your four walls right first, and then when when you're in the midst of that funding battle, then it's actually easier to add the stuff. What funders won't do is fund the stuff first, for obvious reasons. And so I think it would be probably a bit mad to not at least get it all spec'd and costed and done as part of the same project. I think you're absolutely right, so that we know what could happen. But I think you wouldn't want to let the perfect get in the way of the good, in terms of, I think you'd want to go ahead with the building, and then if we don't get money for lights and microphones and sound and everything, then we use what we've got until we do. But it is actually my experience that once the funding ball gets rolling, you know, I can't promise, but I'd be fairly confident that we probably would get there. But what I wouldn't want to do is let it slow us down.
No, that's fine. I wasn't certain whether how capitalised, you know, in terms of what you're talking about. Councillor Brown.
Hallelujah, well done. That sounds fantastic, just what we need, and 100% behind it. Again, it basically really needs to, and it has done for a long time. You know, this ground floor for certain doesn't work. It's I can remember when this was a snooker room in the 70s. It's not a snooker in here. There was a little library. It was designed in Victorian time, so absolutely that sounds fantastic. You know, open plan as much as we can, obviously the structure of the building. But like I say, so that people can see in and see what's happening. It's bright, it's light. It's going to be like a flame turn off. People will come in. So yeah, it sounds great, and it sounds really good that you've got a big vision for that, and obviously you've got a track record of actually delivery and stuff like this. So, this is really positive news, and hopefully, can go forward. I know there'll be a lot of detail again, but people, John and such like will be able to delve into the grand plan, the grand vision. Yeah, I'm 100% behind it, personally.
Councillor Davison, then Councillor Mason.
Councillor Brown, you took away my thunder. I was going to say, I'm sold on it. Ready. But clearly, the funding is going to be put in place. As Councillor Brown just said, I'm a money man as well, so I'm sure we can get the money. What's the sort of timescale envisaged?
Well, I suppose the first question is, when can we start, isn't it? Because it's when we started. I mean, I suppose it really depends on how we cut it. If we think it's worth giving it a go with the Heritage Lottery Fund, then we're then bound by their timescales. So, probably to get a full proper application in, you're talking about, if we started relatively soon, next sort of month or two, you're talking about maybe a year from then before they finally give us the million or whatever we asked for. And I'm confident that they eventually would, actually. Obviously, if you just, I'm not being clear, but if you just said, oh, we'll take a Public Works Board loan and do it, then it'd be a lot quicker than that, wouldn't it? Because you wouldn't have to wait for a third party to say yes, you could just get going. So it's really about, that's why I wasn't sure I wanted to come here, and it's about the approach and how how you want to do it, or whether you want to, there is a world, isn't there, where you do both and say, well, the loan's there if the lottery if turned us down, but we don't want to use it before we know. You could do both. You could go in tandem. But I think I need a steer from council as to how committed you are to wanting to do it, if you think it's the right thing to do, and what you want to do about the money. There is also, of course, I think it's inevitable that there's going to be a bit of money that we need sorting out, isn't there? Because we're going to need those architects to refresh the plans, get structural engineering, get quantity surveying, all that costs. I don't know, because I'm not in that world, how much that costs, but there is going to be a cost to that, isn't there? It is refreshing rather than starting from scratch, because thankfully I do think these plans are nearly there. But also there might be a process where you want to see the plans and have your chance to, in which case we might need a bit more money to make some changes, So, but I think that's sort of where we are. We've got what we've got, but in order to move it on, we'll probably need the professionals to come in, get us to a point where we are fundable, and then go to the funder, whoever that may be, whether it's you or whether it's somebody else or both.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Mason.
I'm not a money man, but I do like vibrancy, I love energy, and if you were to talk about what people are saying on social media or on the high street or whatever, look at investment in the town or infrastructure, this is a public building for the public, and it needs to be reinvented, and what you're talking about suggests that it's going to be light and airy and accessible, exactly what a public building needs to be. And I'm not a money man. I wish we could get started on this sooner rather than later, because I think it would also be a pick-me-up for the high street. It would increase footfall. I think it would inspire people to get out and make use of this public building. The amount of user groups that would want to come in and do exhibitions, and we almost can't wait. I'll leave the money for other people to decide, but and I appreciate your vision as well. The way that you're communicating it, it gives us the confidence to feel that you're guiding us down the right path. So thank you for that.
Councillor Dave Smith. People said it's also really good. I'm a bit pessimistic on a new ever being built, so I think it's important that we try to focus on what can be done with this building, because it was built in a number age. It's obviously not fit for a modern purpose, and anything we can do here to make it more user-friendly is good. Let somebody else worry about mine.
Most says.
Yeah, we did have somebody who might help. Councillor Marks.
Yes, absolutely. I too love your vision and your enthusiasm. It's really refreshing. At the last meeting, we talked about a number of projects which fit into that, which form part of that overall vision, which are not separate from it, but appeared to me at that time to be more urgent than waiting for, and we all know that with the timescales for everything right now, you're talking about 1 year, we're probably pushing to 3, realistically. So, were there any elements that, we do have a capital budget, that you feel that this would enhance this building now, but would not compromise putting in an application for the overall changes? So I think I would like to see the programme of change started using the capital programme that we discussed last time, but still putting in the funding for the overall major changes. I don't know whether that forms part of it, but opening up the very front of this building, I think there's nothing worse than walking in this building. It feels like you're coming into a dentist surgery. It's absolutely grim. You feel quite shut off. And the other thing I absolutely hate is the corridor upstairs when you actually go, and if there's no lights on there and you're trying to walk to go into the amphitheatre area, it's awful. You sort of, and it feels sort of dark and gloomy. It feels like, Pickwick's Papers, really, doesn't it? So there are a couple of elements that I would actually personally like to see done under our capital budget, provided it didn't compromise a major application. And that way we could start to progress and see changes happening, and the public would hear that things are happening. So that's just my perspective on it.
I mean, the answer is, there are discrete elements, particularly discrete elements on this floor that I think would show a fairly immediate result in terms of the coffee bar being successful. There's a sort of mini version of the redevelopment of this floor that I talked Colin through, which was the beginning of this conversation, really, to be honest, that I think there are bits that we could do for not a fortune, hopefully. Other thing that springs to mind, of course, is those toilets, because they are embarrassing. But that would be throwing good money after that, because in the new plan they'd be moved.
Right. So that would be my point.
Yeah.
Don't do something now that compromise that overall vision. But if there are smaller elements that would actually be needed to be done, that fit under that plan, that were going to have to be done anyway, but would start to enhance the experience for people coming here, because that's really what it's about. It's not about us, is it? It's about the people who come to the building, and certainly that entrance is, to my mind, something which is ghastly. But I don't know whether that's a massive, expensive change to develop the front entrance to the building.
Well, I would suggest that maybe if the council were minded to, if we could find some money for some professional fees, then we could ask those professionals to phase
tranching.
Yes.
On which tranche?
That's right. So that it could be costed in a way that we could pick off discrete elements.
Yeah, that would be good.
And you might get more bang for you, 2 answers for one.
Yeah. Well, you also might get more opportunity for funding, because people like Haverhill Housing have funds, and a lot of their people are here.
That's right.
We need to go to people like that, but they're not going to give you $1 million. But they might tranche fund one part of their project if you had that, if you knew what those elements cost. Yeah, that's super.
I mean, in my theatre that I just built, I think the lift was perhaps funded about 5 times because it's a discrete element that I could ask the smaller funders for, and if more than one of them wanted to pay, so be it. So yes, I mean you can do that.
Okay. I've got, I'm conscious of the time as well. Councillor Creedy, then Councillor Smith, Liz Smith.
I love everything you've said. You've kind of taken away my comments. I was going to ask about whether it could be split up into phases. Might help the money side of things, but might also help with not taking the building out of action for such long periods of time. We can maybe still offer some kind of service here. In terms of direction, it's kind of hard to know where to go next. I'd be more than happy for the council to spend money now to bring in, people to advise us and draw up new plans. Until that's done, I think it's hard to say, what should happen next. If the bill is astronomical, we might say we can't do it at all, or we don't want to put that burden on to Haverhill taxpayers, and we do need to find grant funding. I mean, that's hard to say. And just one small point, just to correct what you said earlier, Haverhill does have a museum. The Haverhill History Group is an accredited museum. We just lack the exhibition space to show ourselves off.
Yeah, no, sorry, I meant physical museum. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a very good point that Haverhill, something that I've talked to them a lot about, the History Group, because they're an accredited museum, as long as they hang on to their accreditation, because it's due for renewal this year, that is major points with the Heritage Lottery Fund. So it immediately shunts us up the queue. So, it would, the fact that it's a listed building, shunts us up the queue. So when I say I'm quite confident that we've got a case with them, it's not a nebulous thing, that I know that we have some of the things that they look for, and one of them is that accreditation. So
well, I think we're confident that we're going to maintain our accreditation, so hopefully.
Yeah, good. Well, it's definitely a positive, they're definitely a positive partner to have on this project, in terms of the funding situation, definitely.
Lovely, thank you. I've got finally Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant idea. You've really sold it to me. I love the idea of opening up the space and the accessibility as well. We've had people from disability forums talking about, the accessibility of this building, and I think that would be fantastic to improve that. And I'm sure the funding will come along because of those adaptations that we will make to the building. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Daniel, because it is very refreshing to hear your plans and how we can really start something. I agree with Councillor McCree that I think we need to perhaps start with looking at these professional fees, how much we might need to cost out to get people in, to have a look at that, and some sort of phases so that people will come. Sure, lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. When we first interviewed for the job, I was quite impressed with what you've done elsewhere, so I think it's very exciting. We need a proposal, basically, to go to that next step. I think that, personally, I would propose that we find some money from somewhere for those things, whether it's Michael Holden or whoever it might be, those sort of things. So I'll propose it. Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Are you going? Yeah, I think it might be. Have you got a long drive home or something?
Thank you.
I'm trying to think, there are things like angel investors as well. A lot of them are very interested in the arts. There's also another group, they're not angel investors, they're angel advisors. And the name is what will come to my but they do the price for free.
The Theatre Trust do it. Yes, you're quite right. Yeah, they're on today, don't they?
Right. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate your time with you.
Thank you.
7B, which is the Youth Skills Manager report, which you've all had. Double-sided as usual. Small print. I hope you've all had a chance to read it. Any questions at all on it? Any comments? Again, he mentions about the lottery funding they got, which I think we mentioned last time.
Sure. Could I just ask one question? I sometimes feel with these reports, again, correct me or steer me in another direction if you think so, but there's not enough data. So, sometimes I feel, how many people are we impacting? It's a useful update, but I don't recall ever really seeing any data, if such data exists. I don't know.
It does exist. It has been shown in the past, particularly by this project, and inquiring it. They've been shown here, but you may not be the member of the committee at that point. But we can ask for some numbers.
Yeah,
a balance between quantitative and qualitative.
That's right, yeah. So, you know, obviously each thing that they do is different numbers. So you can't say, well, why did you only have 5 there, we have 20 there.
It's just to get a broad picture.
Councillor Brown?
Just one quick one. Could you ask Karen if she could actually ask the youngsters how, you know, the impact of the bus service and get to college and whatever? I'd be interested to find out.
For Hills Road, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or transport.
Anyway,
generally, you know,
just
how it's impacting on them. If it is impacting them, I know it is, but yeah.
Just very quickly, Councillor Mason, I think the thing to bear in mind is that some of the stuff that they're doing is slow burners. I mean, I was there last week, and obviously Karen explaining, you know, some of the people that they're dealing with, sort of like 18 months later before they got success. So you can't really quantify. Sometimes you can't put a number as to what they're doing. But yeah, they're certainly doing a lot. But like you, I agree. We want to actually see what we're paying for and what's actually coming out.
I mean, I'd be quite interested in quite generous timescales over a 3-year period. How many people have they helped into work or whatever? You know, it's because I think you're right. I mean, if you talk about narrow timescales, the data isn't going to be necessarily helpful because of slow burners. But that was just my general point. If some data was available.
Okay. Any other queries on that? Okay. And then we move on to the Sandra's report and the team up at the zone. They are now open all day on a trial basis on Wednesday to Sunday. They had some good sessions with the Halloween and things, with a lot of staff dressing up. And did you dress up?
Always.
Always. Just checking. Any questions on this report? Councillor Mason?
Yeah. The same point again, in particular with the detached youth work, again, maybe, you know, is it small numbers? What sort of impact in terms of how many kids are passing through our hands? Whether, again, there's any data specifically available for that.
Can we just say that youth worker, I know Colin, you were going to look at asking Sandra to, when we were on that walkabout the other day, it came up, you were going to ask us particularly. Thank you. That's good.
Okay, we've done D. So we're on to item 8 now, which is the grant funding policy. As you know, we had a large grant we made last month before. And we need to look at the policy because we seem to, over a period of time, as I think Colin mentioned this to me the other day, is that we seem to have started giving out very large grants to groups, which may well deserve it, I'm not saying they don't, but they don't seem to want to help themselves a little bit by going elsewhere. We see it in community chest as well. And so I need Colin to...
Well, and obviously, I think Councillor Burns just said, it really encapsulates it. You would expect parish councils, small parish councils, to give out £50 here and £50 there, and town councils to give out grants in the hundreds and occasionally in the thousands. But I've noticed actually you don't get an opportunity to give a few £100 to something because everyone asks for £4,000 plus. So when you've got a £18,000 general grant pot and all the grant applications are coming in at 4,000, then your money disappears instantly. We've seen that this year, following particularly the grant to the voluntary network, which was 4 times the budget given for community transport that you'd agreed in January, it basically wiped out the entire grant fund. So yes, we will take on the point as the last meeting that we will provide the information in written form before the meeting, but it's whether or not you want to have a few people get together to review the grants policy and then report back to this meeting on changes to just basically whether you want to put a cap on how much you're prepared to offer. The previous kind of process has been around for a long time, certainly before 2019, is that councillors favoured a fairly open grant policy where you've been able to give grants to all sorts of causes that lots of councils wouldn't give to those good causes. And it's been, impactful, but you've got a choice, haven't you? You can either have a very strict grant policy so that you know your hands are tied and occasionally feel frustrated that your hands are tied and you would have liked to give money, or you can have what we've got, which is very open. And therefore it's sometimes a bit difficult when the person sat there to actually refuse what's clearly a good cause. So whether or not to review the grants policy, but just check, have we got the balance right? Would it be useful to perhaps give ourselves some discipline and say we won't give out grants above X level? Reduce your own, at the moment you have terms of reference that allow you to give out grants up to 5,000, I think it is. Well, you could choose, actually, we don't want that discretion, that actually anything over 3,000 would have to go to full council. So you'd have this second opportunity to check yourselves to whether or not that's really some good. So you're not kind of making decisions on the cusp so much. So if people would just discuss that, but I think really what I'm asking for is perhaps you want to get together to review your policy.
I've got Councillor Mark, those and then Joe Mason.
Thank you.
Then Tony
John and I sat for a long time now on the community grants panel at the Suffers, have become with a fair amount of experience, and we see this all the time. And I think John will agree, what we're seeing is people increasingly asking year on year for more money. So what we've tended to do is we ask them to break things down. So we very often do not give them what they've asked for, provided that's not the whole project. So if it's the whole project cost and we didn't give it to them, then the project couldn't take place. And if they've got no other way of funding that, what happens now is that they get directed to other funding streams, because we won't just give them that whole tranche of money because they've pitched up and asked for it. We've got very, very strict about matched funding. They have to, part of our criteria is absolutely, they have to evidence and match funding. We do come unstuck at things like Home Start and Mind, who are big parts of bigger organisations, and it gets really difficult to work out whether what we're giving them is going to impact on our direct residents or whether that's going into an overall pot, and it's really hard to dig that out. But what we very often do, Colin, is we don't give them, if they've asked for 4,000, but they've actually shown us the breakdown and saying, 2,000 is this bit. Very much like we've said to Daniel, we'll say, well, we'll give you 2,000 and we want it to fund that bit, and we'll pay for that bit, which will impact your project positively, even if you don't manage to get the rest of the money. But we do have this we get about 1.2 million requests, and we've got that. This year we've got 500,000 to give out, and we know we'll get at least 1.2 million requests in. So we have to be quite harsh with it. John Eaton has done a really big review of it, and he may well be worth having a conversation with, because he's probably done much of what you're going to be asking for, and what he's come back with has been superb. And he also knows where to direct other people to get, like Community Chest and other local streams of funding, not least, of course, our own locality funding. So, but we are very strict about people cannot just come and ask for the whole pot of money, and I think that has to be part of our criteria, so that's just my view.
It's come up to 9 o'clock, so can I have a proposal to suspend all quick Tony Brown? I think it was actually Bruce Davidson in my corner. Yeah, all those in favour, please show. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. Tony, Bruce.
10 o'clock, John.
I thought it was 10. Yeah.
No, I didn't say.
We have this problem every year, twice a year we have this problem. Yeah, very, very quickly on that one, I actually wrote down families community support. I think a lot of these groups that come here really ought to be talking to our West Suffolk people. They're the experts in finding this money. And if you haven't come here, they go on to locality and that sort of stuff. So I've got Councillor Davidson.
Very quickly, I'd like to be part of the small party that will be doing this review. Thank you.
Doing the which? The review, yeah, I would like to keep it on this one rather than this week.
Okay, Councillor Wason.
To be honest, I think Councillor Martin's pretty much said it all. I do like the idea of encouraging match funding. The process of raising money is a challenge, and it should be a challenge. And I don't necessarily think we're helping by sending out a message, here's all the money in one go.
Great. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said about we aren't doing anyone any favour by giving big amounts out, and then when it comes to the end of the year, not having any money to help other people out. So, yeah, I completely get what people are saying, but really, there are groups that are very good at getting money, you know, and walking themselves around, etc., etc., and they're doing good work, etc. But there are other people like, you know, say Dennis, for instance. You know, we don't want to fall through the cracks. You know, that's sort of small local groups that, you know, haven't got the voice, etc. You know, I'd like to really try and make sure that they don't get, you know, fall through the sieving process. You know,
It's not going to be asking for 4,000, is it?
no, I'm just saying as that's for instance. You know, small little groups. You know, people that really put their heart and soul into stuff. And they need a few quid, like you say, they're not going to be asking for big amounts of money anyway. But I just want to make sure there's different occasions where they may need money, and you know, I'd like to be able to say
Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, it also, the problem stems from the fact that we're getting squeezed more, you know, because the funding is stopping further up, so it's coming down and down and down, and we are virtually the last resort of these people now. We've got nowhere else to go. Yeah, we see grant applications which we wouldn't have seen in the past. So we just need to do what we can.
Yeah. I think it's right with, you know, I mentioned FNCs, you know, families, community support, that, you know, they are very clever at finding money, but we will invariably have the vast majority of our applicants come here and say we want this money, and look at what they've raised, and quite often they've done nothing. It's just, you know, easy touch, if that's the right word to use. You know, for several years we've had what I call ring fencing. You know, we've allocated this to that group, that to that group. But I think, personally, I would like that stopped. I think this is a pot, and people want to apply for money, they apply for money, and we do that. It's been mentioned by external sources, you know, community foundation and all the other places, and that's where the family communities are expert at it. And obviously locality money, but you know, from a West Suffolk point of view, locality money is not that much, even if you can combine it. I think the other one I was going to mention very quickly is that summary sheet of what the budget is and what we've previously allocated. I think that's very useful. So every time we have a grant, we should have that. We used to have it, and it's just, you know, it's been forgotten about it in time.
John, could I just add, we really need to see their overhead costs as well, so we're not paying somebody. You know, we've seen this, where they've paid staff substantial sums of money. We do need to see that.
But most of the ones that we do don't seem to have that compared to the community chest.
But we need to make sure that we're not, you know, paying people who are
That's fine.
getting more money. We see that.
Right, so,
You've got Councillor Marks,
yeah,
Councillor Davis,
me as well, please.
just
Anybody else?
I think it's actually a small working group.
Yeah, that's 3 of us.
We then report back here with the proposal for any changes.
Maybe if it's not in the room, maybe want to come in, can they put their hand in the room later on?
It's up to you. How all the councillors, how many people do you feel you need?
Anybody expertise? Anyone who's got expertise? Think about this.
Why don't you want to do it, David?
I can, I was just conscious that I do sit on a lot of things.
Yeah.
It shouldn't,
I don't think it will take very long to
Yeah.
resolve this.
One meeting, really.
One meeting, probably. Yeah, you can probably put a date down. You don't need to
So,
propose.
proposals for review.
Yeah, is that all right? Proposal for us, do you need that formal?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a proposal, Councillor Marks, seconded by Councillor Brown. There's 4 people you've got listed, all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. The promise in report still no?
Well, we cleared them all, mate.
No, we did, no, we did, no, I didn't know if we had any more since, sorry, okay. Date of next meeting, obviously we have to approve the date, probably West Suffolk, muck it up again. Tuesday, next year, 10th of January already. And closure of meeting at 21:06. Aaron, all your favour?
Or 10
Just stop the live stream.
Yeah, I noticed that one paper board is on the same as the integrated care board again.
To be fair,
Watch this.
it's conserving people.
Yeah, I think